Hello, and welcome to HughesRound on Friday, the 11th of December, 2020. I hope you can all hear me out there in Twitterland and YouTubeville and Facebook Zone. If you can, please send me a message so I know that the world can hear me, if it's even just a hello, how you doing? So I'm just going to be following on, I guess, today from what was being discussed on the James O'Brien show just then. I'm not going to add anything to Barbara Windsor's death, to her eulogies and things, because I didn't know her. But sad that she's gone. British treasure and all that. But today I really want to start hammering home some of the things that we really need to talk about going forward. Obviously, we are seeing that no deal is going to be an absolute catastrophic disaster on a scale that would be incomprehensible before COVID. But now we have seen, there's a joke in Team America where they say that this will be 9/11 times 100. To which they reply, oh, so you're saying it'll be 91,100. Well, this week, the number of deaths in America from COVID per day the police are on to me if you can hear them going past. You'll never take me alive, copper. Oh, good, I've scared them off. They're back. It's very distracting. It's only when you're filming outside and someone's always reversing their truck or their bus, wherever you want to film, there's always someone who's got a reverse alarm blaring. But it's gone. Living in New York City, Durham, it's difficult to get it nice and quiet. So this week, the number of people per day in America who died of COVID-19, the pandemic that the crooked, rotten, sex pest, bastard leader of the United States of America, the one that he's ignoring, it killed per day this week. It killed more people than 9/11 each day. Each day it killed more than 3,000 people, and the people who died 9/11 was about 2,997. I think it was very close to 3,000. Now, if you times the number of people who died on 9/11 by 100. You get the number of people who have now died of COVID-19 in America, in Trump's America. And yet, 70 million people still think he's doing a bang-up job. He's being backed by the governor, I think, of Texas and a load of Republicans to invalidate the millions of votes in other states. This is Texas. This is the governor of Texas trying to stop votes that have already been cast and counted numerous times in Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, I think. They're trying to get them to throw these legally cast ballots out. And if you don't think that's an affront to democracy, you want your head read, because if the people that you like do this, it opens up the door in the future for the people you don't like doing it. A good example is impeachment. If the judge, what's his name, Ford, hadn't forgiven Nixon for future crimes for him to be, no, not future crimes that he hadn't yet been charged with, he was pardoned by Gerald Ford. His vice president pardoned him. So he didn't go to jail for his crimes. He wasn't even impeached. He wasn't impeached. He resigned before he could be impeached. Maybe if that hadn't happened, then Trump wouldn't feel like he's above the law right now. Maybe if President Bill Clinton hadn't pardoned his brother for drugs offenses in Arkansas, I think, maybe he wouldn't be in a position where people think it's okay for him to pardon his daughter, his sons, his son-in-law for the crimes that they've committed while he's been in power. Maybe. So you got this problem of precedent. You do this, you push things to the edge, and then somebody else one day will be in charge and they will have the same tools to do exactly the same thing, which is one of the arguments against stacking the Supreme Court in America. I'm just going to say hi to everyone because my chat has livened up. Yes, it's a bit lonely the first 45 seconds of doing this because I'm like, hello, can anyone hear me? I'm getting like no feedback, but it's really nice that people leave messages. We've got Jen Lewis saying hello. We've got Tim saying hi from Brussels. Hi Brussels, I wish I was there. Hi from Facebook, Graham, Sally and Wilton there. We've got BG674DH7RD, which is the best username ever, who's giving me a smiley face. We've got Stuart saying hello, not been able to tune in live before. Glad I could make it. And I'm reading your message, Stuart. I'm reading it live on the show. This is brilliant. That technology. 20 years ago, if you told me I could do this kind of thing from my basement, I'll be like, no, that's crazy future talk for when we're all wearing tinfoil jumpsuits and it's the far future date of 1999, which is the year that Escape from New York was set in. That far-flung future date. I think The Running Man was set in 97. I might be wrong about that. I know Blade Runner was set in 2019, so Blade Runner is now the past. The Blade Runner's the past. It's gone. It's happened, and we don't have flying cars, which sucks. But then probably very bad for the environment. So not you got to take the rough with the smooth. Yes. Okay. Cool. Chuck Sal says you are live on YouTube, loud and clear. Fantastic. We've got Too Much 77 saying hi all. We've got Elizabeth Bennett saying hi Graham. We've got Chuckle saying I shall watch Indie Sage later. You clash. Bad planning. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what that is. I'm like basically on the other stage at the same time that you want to watch the Pyramid stage because there's two bands that you like playing at the same time. You're like, why? Why do you have to play at the same time? Why? Why can't you just have one? And then while the other's setting up, you go to the other, you just run across. But then again, Glastonbury's so big that trying to get from one thing to the other isn't that easy. Although one year, I'll tell you a funny story about Glastonbury. One year, it's really, really hard to get into Glastonbury. We have snuck people in the past, perhaps. But every time I've gone to Glastonbury, all 15 times, I've always bought a ticket, even back in the 90s when you didn't really need to. But you could buy a ticket for Glastonbury, get this, a week before Glastonbury from Probe Records for 50 quid. That was the days in the 90s. The reason why I'm talking about getting around Glastonbury is because in about 2008, I think it was, everyone got the wristbands, which are these sort of fabric wristbands, and they're yellow on the outside, and they were black on the inside. Now, do you know what else was black? The wristbands that you needed to get into the backstage area. So what me and my mates did was we flipped over our bog standard pass that 200,000 people had at the Glastonbury Festival, flipped them over and we walked backstage. and it's great because you can get around the site really, really quickly because you don't have to go all around the houses. You can literally walk from the other stage to the Pyramid stage in a couple of minutes. Anyway, I digress. Back to your messages. Darren Christian is shouting, "Stop Brexit!" from a very loud howler there. Thanks, Darren. We've got Too Much 77 saying, "Fucking party politics." Oh, sorry, not supposed to swear. Oh, actually, that word is on my screen. I don't know if they picked that up. Ooh, effing. Any particular foods one should stock up on, Elizabeth? Well, the problem is that a lot of the staples, there might be... It's difficult to say, Elizabeth, with the stocking up on what to have and what not to have. What I would advise is make sure that you have at least a month of pretty much everything that you buy normally. The big problem is going to be fresh fruit and veg. We're really stuffed for it. When I was growing up, you only got satsumas around Christmas time. You didn't get strawberries in winter. That just didn't happen. Things were seasonal. You got things when they were growing, when they were ripening. Obviously, with the EU allowing us access to the single market, and us building the single market with our friends in the EU, 21 of whom are our NATO allies who have promised to go to war if we are invaded. Go to war on our behalf if we are invaded. And these are the people, these are the countries that the scum newspaper and the Mail, Daily Hile, will tell you are our enemies and they're out to get us. Nice. Anyway, back to stockpiling. Okay, so make sure you got lots of tea bags. Make sure you got lots of coffee. Anything dried, anything in tins, that's all great because it'll last forever. But I would just try and get whatever you would normally use in a month or 2 months or 3 months, depending on how much storage space that you have. I don't think we're going to starve. We might. I don't think we are. I think the EU is going to do everything in its power to ensure that food and medicine still and fuel still gets into the country. But yeah, there will be shortages, and it's hard to. What I want to say is it's going to be hard to predict what we have shortages of, apart from fresh fruit and veg, because that's obvious. Because we don't know what people are going to go out and buy. So I don't think there was anyone in February thinking I better go and buy some bog rolls, because definitely that's going to be the one thing that people are going to go for in the case of a national lockdown because of a pandemic. But it was what everyone went for. And it wasn't just people in Britain, there's people all over the world going absolutely crazy for bog roll, which was just like, okay. It just seemed a bit odd to me. But as I said in an earlier video, what happened in March wasn't a supply problem, it was a demand problem. It was too many people wanting one thing all at the same time. What we're seeing with leaving the EU is going to be a very much a supply problem, and it's going to be endemic. It's going to go on for a long time. My advice, yeah, just try and stock up on what you'll normally get. Get stuff that'll last for a long time. Get stuff that doesn't need refrigerating, just because freezer space or refrigerator space is not unlimited. There's some people I know that bought a chest freezer and just frozen a load of stuff. Yeah, if you like. But I think what we're going to see is price rises. So even stuff that we can get is going to go up by an average of 5%. That's from the director of Tesco, I think, said that. And we're going to see shortages of certain products. But also we might see gluts of other products. If we can't sell our lamb to the EU because of the massive the massive tariffs that will be slapped on them, like some kind of international sanction that you'd normally put on a country that you've just defeated in a war, or was developing nuclear weapons against your will, against your want, against your better judgment. No, you didn't want them to develop nuclear weapons, so you put sanctions on them. That's what sanctions are for. Well, we're putting sanctions on ourselves. So we might end up with a glut of lamb. It might just be everything that we eat for the next year is lamb, because it's either that or burn it. Big bonfires of lambs, and we can say to Brexiteers, have the lambs stop screaming, Brexiteer. Okay, I won't do that again. Right, okay, moving swiftly on. Daffyd says, afternoon, you mere mortals. Now, Daffyd, I like Daffyd. He's Welsh, but he lives in Salford. He lives in Manchester. As did one of our prime ministers, who was born in Manchester, but was Welsh, which was David Lloyd George. And if you want to annoy a Brexiteer, tell them that 100 years ago that we had a prime minister, right? And English was his second language. Yeah, disgraceful, isn't it? Anyway, then again, a lot of the Brexiteers who write things, I was going to put that in a more crude way, but I'll just say write things on social media. You would be forgiven for imagining that English is their second language by the way they use it. And I know that sounds incredibly snobbish and elitist, but these are the same people who absolutely hate immigrants, and immigrants generally have more than one language. So, the immigrants are doing better than they are because they've only got one language and they don't even know how to use it. The EU seem to be offering the UK a transition through the first months of a no deal. No doubt Johnson will use that as a personal advantage to continue to slag off the EU. That's from John B. Craddock. Yes, I absolutely agree that he will do that. The EU, there's a very big difference between them needing us more than we need them, and them not wanting us to fail as a country. Because a failed state on your doorstep is not a good plan for any country in the world. You do not want your neighbour falling into civil conflicts, civil unrest, general strikes. It's really bad, because nothing that ever happens on this planet is ever contained within that area, that country. It's never self-contained, with the possible exception of Bhutan, but that's about it. So the idea of having a failed state on their doorstep does not appeal to the EU. And also, they're aware that half the population of the country don't want to leave the EU and think that the people in charge are a bunch of craven idiots, which they are. But there you go. Stephen says, afternoon all. Darren Christian says, how come Leavers aren't banging about GATT 24 again? I thought it meant no tariffs. Oh, no, it's bullshit. So let's talk about GATT for a minute. This will be fun. So last year, Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister, who's an idiot. He talks Latin now and again because he went to a posh school. He doesn't know what it means. He doesn't know what it means. It's like a comedian telling a joke, but they don't understand why it's funny. That's a bad comedian. You know, if you don't understand why what you're saying is funny, you're not going to be a good comedian. Well, he's not a good politician. He's not a good human being. And he's certainly not very good at telling the truth. So he pulled out this shit about the GATT. So GATT is the precursor to the WTO. So GATT existed from about the 1940s to the mid-90s when it became the WTO. And the GATT stood for something like the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. And it was around the world and anyone could join it. And it basically... its job was, as the WTO's job is now, facilitating free trade around the world, putting limits on protectionism, putting limits on what tariffs you can put on things coming into your country, and making it so that you can't give preferential treatment to a country next to you unless you have, or any country, it doesn't have to be next to you. You can't give favoritism to one country without giving it to all the others unless you have a comprehensive free trade agreement or some kind of tariff agreement with that country that is signed off and checked over by the other members of the WTO. I think there's about 600, Jesus Christ, 164 countries in the WTO. So that's nearly all of them. There's only 193 members of the UN. And a lot of the smaller countries that aren't in the WTO, there's their GDP put together is not very much. Let's put it that way. The WTO it's a capitalist machine. It's trying to facilitate free trade, which is what the British always tried to do. Anyway, as part of this, they made this agreement because of countries like East Germany and West Germany reunifying, or more pertinently, countries Balkanizing. It's funny because the Balkans actually balkanized. So the term balkanization was invented like over 100 years ago, and then it was the perfect term to describe what happened to the Balkans in the 1990s. Like the Yugoslav countries. A good example would be Czechoslovakia splitting into the Czech Republic and Slovakia, or Czechia and Slovakia, not Slovenia. It's completely different, same flag, different badge on the flag. It's a different badge, definitely a different country. Although I hear that a lot of embassies around the world, they have to swap the mail between the Slovak and the Slovenian embassies, as they often get mixed up. Anyway, digressing. And also Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia used to be one country under Tito, and then he died, and the Berlin Wall came down, and eventually it split into what is now 7 countries. So Slovenia, as mentioned, Croatia, both of whom are part of the EU now, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, Montenegro, Macedonia, and Kosovo, arguably. I get into trouble if I say Kosovo on these things. Someone from Serbia is watching. They'll be like, it's Serbian. And you're like, it's really not. It hasn't been Serbian for a very, very long time. Also, the breakup of the USSR, which is one country. So you could pretty much, once you were in there, you should have been able to go anywhere. You weren't allowed to go to the Tajik SSR. You were not allowed to go to until 1991. In fact, no foreigners were allowed in that SSR for some reason, which is now Tajikistan. So that's split into 15 countries. The USSR split into 15 countries. So what do you do about trade in these countries? Well, you have a special thing called GATT 24, which is dispensation of the general rules of trade specifically for countries that are splitting apart, or maybe even for countries that are gluing themselves together, like Germany. And it meant that the trade could continue as it did internally within that market until things were sorted out. So it was an interim thing for countries that were splitting up. We are not a country splitting up at the moment. It might come into force maybe if Scotland leaves, but it's not going to affect us leaving the EU. Boris Johnson knew this to be nonsense. He knew that it was bollocks. He knew that he was lying, and he just said it last year. He said, GATT 24, GATT 24, GATT 24. He stopped saying that. Another thing he stopped saying is, we're not going to pay any money to the EU. We're not going to pay this 39 billion. We did pay that 39 billion. We've been paying it off for the last few years, and Boris Johnson's suddenly very quiet about that. Now he just goes on about fish. Like he doesn't really go on about the NHS getting more money anymore. Suddenly the NHS is just getting the same percentage that it always did. But what he'll do is he'll go, oh, well, because of inflation and because of interest on things, obviously things cost more now and people get paid more because that's just the nature of the economy. So what I'll do is I'll say how much the NHS is getting in absolute terms. So in terms of actual money, and say, oh, that's more, which is really daft. It's like saying, oh, well, the death rate's going up because there's more people. But yeah, if you count like the number of people who are dying, then yeah, it's higher than ever before. But you don't look at that. You look at it as a percentage of the population, because if the population is growing exponentially, then the death rate going up each year is not to be unexpected. The death number rather than the death rate. Again, going back to, was it Twain? Was it Mark Twain or was it Disraeli who said, lies, damn lies, statistics. And Boris Johnson loves his statistics. He loves his rhetoric, and he loves playing up that whole, oh, aren't I so posh and above it all and a good time, Joker boy. I mean, actually, he is scum. Him and Rees-Mogg, if they were brought up on a council estate, they would be drug dealers. They would be horrible, nasty drug dealers who would stab you for like a fiver. They're just really bad people. They're bad eggs. Like in bad nuts. Sorry, they're bad nuts. Like in Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, the movie, the first one. Right. Okay. So back to your messages. Just want to talk about Gap 24 there. Thanks, Darren. John B. Craddock says, and resign before the caca hits the fan. I don't know if he will resign. He's still really popular, believe it or not. Stuart says, many thanks, Graham. Next time you're in Paris, I'll buy you a pint. Or a 568 milliliter glass of beer. Ooh, okay, thank you, Stuart. That sounds great. I will look you up next time I am in Paris. Next time I'm allowed to go to Paris, because from January the 1st, I'm not allowed to go to Paris anymore. Running Man was 2017. Oh, brilliant. Thanks to Austin Keith there. Sorry, I was only 20 years out. It was Escape from New York was 1997. Running Man was 2017. Blade Runner was 2019. Omega Man, the Logan's Run, what was the one where, Soylent Green. Let's find out when was Soylent Green? Was that 2029? Really interesting. You watch Soylent Green. Why is there no food anymore? Why is Soylent Green? Why does it have to be people? Well, because of global warming. That's what it says in the movie. It says it in the movie, which came out in the early 70s. Global warming. It's not like we haven't known about it since literally the last 50 years. But there you go. It's like when they found the link between smoking and cancer, right? You can read Sherlock Holmes stories from the 1890s in which Watson, a doctor, says to Sherlock Holmes, you should stop smoking. You know it's bad for your health. Oh, that was a big shock when in the early 60s, when it turned out that there was a link between lung cancer and heart disease and smoking. Who knew that smoke was bad for you? We thought it was, it was good. No, they didn't. They never thought it was good. They always knew it was bad. They always know that. But they've known that burning fossil fuels is going to be bad for the environment since they started burning fossil fuels. Why do you think we have Clean Air Acts? Why do you think we have to get rid of the London smog? Right, anyway, back to the list. Flying cars are coming. They really, really mean it this time. Along with the hydrogen fuel cell car, which is always 20, it's always 20, I was going to say always 20 miles away. It's always 20 years away or 10 years away. Give us another 10 years and we're going to have hydrogen fuel cell. No, forget about it. Stop researching them, right? Forget it. Just the logistics behind getting hydrogen into every petrol station in the country and having that as the fuel that everyone needs. Yeah, I get it. But what's better is if you got a clever way of making energy through hydrogen, have hydrogen petrol station, not petrol stations, power stations, power your cars through electricity from. Okay, right, I'm going to leave it at that. Hello from Frankfurt, says Dirty Jokes fan. I'm a fan of Dirty Jokes too. Hey. Andrew N says, hi from Stockport. I wish it was Stockholm, but then I have an Irish passport. Thanks, Mum. Oh, you're just rubbing it in our face there, aren't you, Andrew N? I'm just... Anyway, BBC News at 1, headlines, Barbara Windsor, number 3, no deal Brexit. Oh, Barbara Windsor, number 1, no deal Brexit, number 3. Hashtag priorities. Afternoon all, one day closer to Brexit cliff edge. Yep. That's some plum duff. Stephen says, Andrew Castle is on LBC now instead of Sheila, so it's definitely time to switch over to HughesRound instead of listening to his bilge. I humbly agree with that message from Stephen. Literally, pretty much every other presenter on LBC is bloody awful. I like Sheila, I think she's nice, but I don't think she challenges people enough. She started doing it a bit more now, probably because people keep criticising her for not attacking people so much. But Sheila must feel like Smurfette until the Prime Minister's sister was given a job. How she got that, I don't know. But I think that's only once a week. Sheila's the only daily presenter on LBC who's a woman. And she's only one of the 5, I think, or 6, that didn't go to private school. That's quite impressive. So I like Sheila, but I feel like for the rough and tumble of talk radio, in a highly charged political environment that we have at the moment, I think she'd be better suited to more local social stuff, talking about how to better local areas and things like that. And that sounds really patronising, and I know it sounds really bad, but I listened to her and I wanted to challenge people more, and I don't think she challenges them enough. However, having said that, none of the other presenters bother challenging anyone who's a bit Brexity. And I thought Eddie Mair, of all the presenters that they got onto LBC in the last few years, I thought he'll do a really good job because he's dynamite against politicians. I think he was the one who said to, was it him or was it Marr, who said to Boris Johnson that he was a nasty piece of work, said it to his face on television. That was great. I think that was Eddie Mair. And Eddie Mair, Andrew Marr, nightmare. Anyway, yeah, but he gets people on, and I listen to it quite a lot, and they ring up and they go, Brexit's great, and I don't know why, and the EU did this, they stole my wife, and they ate my dog, and I've got no knob because of the EU, it's all their fault. And he goes, thank you for your call. And he just puts the phone down, and you're like, are you not going to correct anything he said? You're just giving someone a mouthpiece on national radio to talk absolute bollocks, and you didn't stop him. You didn't say, hang on, it does sound like you're chatting shite there, my friend, my good chum. I always tell when James O'Brien is on wind-up mode, because he says, he starts going on about how much of a friend the person on the line is. If it's someone he disagrees with, he goes, yeah, we're really, really, really good friends, but, and then he gets told he's a snake in the grass 4 times in a row. If anyone was listening this morning. Hey, Graham from the Gold Coast in Australia. Feeling for you back in the UK. That's from Frank Mills. Hi, Frank. Sorry for the Australia voice. There. I spent a lot of time in Australia. I used to live there in Melbourne. Back in a former life, and I really enjoyed living in Melbourne. I really enjoyed travelling around Australia. I've travelled through the Red Centre. I've travelled all the way over to Perth in the west of the country. Driven, I should say, not travelled, driven, all the way around the island, the massive island of Australia, and I've got to say, I loved it, but the casual racism really upset me. I wasn't used to it. I wasn't used to just people coming out with racist stuff like it was no problem. I was used to people being British and saying, I'm not a racist, but, and then saying something horrifically racist. I was used to that, but I wasn't used to people literally just coming out with racist stuff at me and just assuming that I think it was all right because of the whiteness of my skin. That sat quite uncomfortably with me. And now, thanks to Brexit, that one of the few things that upset me about Australia is now upsetting me about the UK. So Australia, beautiful country. I absolutely adore driving around and seeing the flora and fauna. I love the Aboriginal culture. It's so rich and interesting. It's 50,000 years of history there. Unfortunately, a lot of it has been lost. A lot of it has been lost on purpose, not by the Aboriginals, I'll point out. But yeah, when it comes to that sort of casual racism, Australians are notorious for it. And it's one of those things, it's like when you got a Scottish mate and they're a bit tight and you're like, no, don't do this. yeah, don't play up to the stereotypes, just get a round in, or you got a Scouse mate who does actually rob stuff, and you're like, no, stop it, please. Note to everyone, Liverpool, very safe city, one of the safest cities in the world. You probably won't get your tyres robbed. It's a trope. It's a trope. An untrue one. Just Me and Video says, hello from Belgium, working the port of Zeebrugge. It's going to be difficult. The last people ferries between Belgium and Hull will stop taking passengers. Jesus. Graham, what do you think will happen on, this is from Craig Brett, what do you think will happen on January the 1st? I'm really worried for my family and my parents who are shielding. I think it's not going to be like at midnight, everything's going to, the power's going to go off. And the EU's going to put contingencies in place, even if it is a no deal. And I still think they'll get a wafer thin deal. I'm putting my money on this. I'm saying I still think they'll get a wafer thin deal. But even if they don't, the EU will put things in place to make sure that adequate food and supplies will come through. I think, was it David Davis who said that we would have adequate food? That was like last year, the bit of a climb down from sunlit uplands to we will have adequate food. But yeah, they're going to prioritise medicine, which is going to be flown in. That is not a long-term solution. Obviously, it'll cost far too much. The NHS just will not be able to afford these medicines if every single one of them's got to be flown in on a jet plane. I think that you're going to see travel disruption, which we have anyway because of COVID. We're not going to be able to go to Europe anymore for holidays. So if anyone's, I don't even know if you're allowed to transit through, which really stuffs me, because if I want to go to, say, South America or something, I've got to go through Europe. I've got no choice. There's no direct flights from the UK. And I might not be able to do that from January the 1st. So it's up to them when they decide to change the rules on COVID and allow people into their countries again for non-essential means. And while we were part of the EU, they couldn't do that. Well, I mean, individual countries could, but not the EU as a bloc. And this is just, I don't know, it's just killing me. So yeah, back to the 1st. I don't think that anything's going to massively change overnight, but I think we're going to start throughout the month of January starting to see stuff going out to supermarkets. We're going to see a lot of footage of trucks and lorries piling on all the way along the M62 from the port of Liverpool to Warrington, where they've built this new depot for them to be processed. We're going to see massive queues in Kent, as we've spoken about, and everything that goes with that, the crime, because obviously 7,000 trucks in a row is a sitting duck, and you can't police it like you can an actual compound that's surrounded by razor wire with containers in it. You can't do that. You've got someone who's sitting in the front of the van of the cab, hoping that no one breaks into the back, which is 40 foot behind him or her. So yeah, I think that it's going to get progressively worse and worse. Stopgap measures are going to be put in, but very rapidly it's going to become, let's use this hateful phrase, the new normal. It's the new normal. We're going to be the first advanced economy in the world that's decided to turn itself into a developing economy for literally no good reason other than fish and blue frickin' passports. Fish that we don't eat and passports that we could have changed the colour of anyway. Hurrah! Right, I think I'm probably a lot behind on the messages here because I'm still at like 10 past and it's now half past. It's like 34 past. So I'm quickly going to go through here. Jen Lewis, don't forget your pets. Yes, pet passports no longer valid in the EU after January the 1st. So if you want to take your pet abroad, it's going to be like in the old days before the pet passports, where they have to be put into quarantine for 3 months or 4 months before they go anywhere or when they get back. Yay. Yeast was hard to find a few months ago. Yes, get yeast. I think we've got a year's supply of yeast here. You only get little cans of it, but yeah, if you can get some Allison's yeast, I would say get some now. Another thing is that people are saying, oh, well, we should have enough flour. We should have enough flour because we grow a lot of that stuff. Yes, but a lot of the stuff that farmers need in order to farm the stuff that we eat comes from the EU. We're talking about machinery, seeds coming into the country. So there's disruption of that stuff coming into the country. Then we're not going to have the harvests to. We only supply 50% of our food anyway. But yeah, it's going to become very difficult. Anyone watching this, please don't go nuts. Don't buy half the supermarket. But if you're going shopping this week, buy a little bit more than you need. Put it that way. We've been doing that for the last few months. Every time we're at the supermarket, instead of just buying one of something, we'll buy two, just so we had a little bit of backup in case something goes missing that I can't live without, like, I don't know, Jacob's cream crackers or Jaffa cakes or something. Just watched, this is Plum Duff, just watched an old Royal Marines documentary from 1980, Worm and Egg Omelette, anyone, the new Brexit menu. Ernie Burns says, programmed cultists have invested in transgressive ideas or have no moral ethical framework. Only harsh reality will break the trance. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are on Ernie's side on this. The fact that the harsh reality of Brexit will finally shut them up, but I don't know. I think if anything, the lesson of this year with COVID has taught me is that the cretins in charge can get away with murder. In Trump's case, the murder of hundreds of thousands. In our case, the murder of tens of thousands. We've got people like that horrible loser Fox person on the internet who is saying that he's not going to wear a mask past January the 1st because it's an affront to his freedom. This is a guy who claimed in a tweet once to me that his grandfather got shrapnel in his face fighting the Nazis in World War II. So let me get this straight. Your grandfather, Lawrence, was prepared to have something explode in his face and live with the pain of having shrapnel in his face for the rest of his life. And you won't wear a cloth across your stupid fucking ugly gob to go the shops in order to protect the very generation that fought in that war. I mean, you kind of think, I keep saying about it, you think there's no lower that these cretins, these privately educated, tough cretins can go. But no, the sea is bottomless. As I was saying yesterday, there's a point where you have to tell a child, no. You have to tell them, no, stop. There is a line. It is dangerous to cross that line for whatever reason. It might be a danger to themselves. It might be a danger to someone else. It might be a danger to society as a whole. No one has ever told Lawrence Fox no. No one has ever told Boris Johnson or Jacob Rees-Mogg or Michael Gove or any of these privately educated millionaires. No one's told them no. Their entire life, they've just done whatever the hell they like. And if they've done something that's been good ever, it's to impress somebody that they like. So it might be a woman, it might be a guy, it might be a friend, it might be someone like that. But they'll be trying to impress someone. It won't be doing it because it's the right thing to do. They have no idea what the right thing to do is because their parents were awful. Their parents were awful, awful people who were awful at being parents and shouldn't have been allowed to be parents. But we can't go down that route because that is not the brave new world that we want. Obviously, everyone's free to have children, but I just feel some people really, if your heart's not in it, come on. Anyway, so yeah, back to Plum Duff says, true, Ernie. Bogrel sounds like Bovril. Yeah. All this because of a few rich men's lies. That's very true. Power of the media will decide what people rush out for. They'll suggest and Muppets will run out for it. Yeah. Get a B-day, saves on paper and money in the long run. No, I'm not going with a B-day. See, half the world uses a B-day, or at least water, to wipe their arse, or wash their arse. The other half uses dry toilet paper. I think they're both wrong. I think everyone should be using wet wipes, but wet wipes that actually degrade in the water. A lot of the wet wipes that we buy in this country that are marketed as flushable are not actually flushable. They don't actually degrade, and they just help cause these massive fatbergs, which is a great name for Trump, which is a fatberg is a big lump of fat and shit and vomit and toilet paper and wet wipes and tampons that have clogged up the sewer. They're called fatbergs, and it's a great description of Donald J. Trump. He is the world's fatberg, and we really need to get some sticks and just shove him out so he just goes out the sewer and is dumped somewhere in the North Sea, probably. Right, just started on a bog roll futures at stock exchange. Bog roll futures, oh my God. But yeah, Darren, yeah, get a B-day. I don't know, you got to get it plumbed in. You're going to get a plumber in the next 2 weeks? I don't know. I'll just stack up on wet wipes. Just get loads and loads of wet wipes. Yeah, that's what I would recommend. Darren, nice one. You can also wash your hair. I love the bidet idea. You can wash your hair in a bidet. What? Do you wash your hair in the toilet? What's wrong with you people? I'm joking. I love you, really. But that's weird. Simon Polkington says, get ready for a glut of Falkland squid. I quite like squid. Thanks, Graham. I'm actually listing my basic recipes, casseroles, veggie dishes, pies, biscuits, cakes, etc., all to put in the freezer. But I asked to advise. Yeah, it's just stuff that you buy anyway. I don't think that there's going to be too much of a problem with, I might be wrong, but I don't think there's going to be too much problem with like canned goods and stuff, because it lasts for ages and we can keep it. But it is really the fresh fruit, things like that. Don't forget, this isn't just about the problems getting the stuff in. Say the government says, right, this port is snagged up, we're running out of food, we're just going to open this port up for food for a week, and that's all that's going to be allowed in is going to be food. We're going to check it all in advance, so we're not going to stop it. Okay, so we get all this food in. Where do we store it? This is another problem because of the way that the just-in-time delivery method works, not just at car plants, but also in the supermarket network. Supermarkets they have depots where stuff is for a little bit, and then that's sent off to all the different stores around the country or in the area. And those depots are finite. They're a certain size, based on customer demand. And obviously because people have Tesco Club cards and Nectar cards and things, these companies know exactly what people buy. They know exactly how much of everything to buy, so that whenever you go to the supermarket, they should have what you need. Not always, but they should have what you need. This Brexit law throws a spanner into that, because they're going to have to stock up more and they'd have the space. Amazon apparently has bought a load of warehousing space. But also, it's not just that. Fresh fruit and veg, it's not just a case of keeping it in a pallet a lot of times. You have to keep it cool. So think about the power needs to just store all this stuff, which we didn't have to use any power to store before. Refrigeration and also freezing. Freeze a lot of stuff. So the power demands are going to go up at a time when it might be harder for fuel to get into the country. But blue passports. 27 Bike Brothers says, hi Graham, hello. Ernie Burns says, no need to stock up on Schadenfreude. That will be in ready supply and Brexiteers. I like that word, Brexiteers. I want my European passport back. Plum Duff, I'm with you. I want my European passport back. I got through 7 British passports when they were EU passports. And I really should have got another one. I should have just written to them saying I need another passport a couple of years ago, and I'm kicking myself now for not doing it. One, because now my passport runs out in 2024. So we'll probably still not be in the EU by then, so we'll have to get one of these disgusting British passports that's blue for some reason, because in the past they used to be black. But also the inside of I don't know if the new blue passports got the same insides, but they had designs and things from the UK, from all over the UK, and in there they had the Anglican Cathedral in Liverpool, and also they had another place, which is the men standing on the beach up in Formby, to the north of Liverpool, and designed by Sir Anthony Gormley. And those 2 things were actually in the passport. I think there was one other Liverpool connection in there as well, but it was nice to have pictures of things in the passport. Although I did feel it was going a little bit towards the American passport. They brought out a new American passport sort of about 10, 15 years ago or something. And honestly, every page is like a quote about how amazing America is. And it's just like an American eagle on each page, just going, yeah, with like muscles, like USA written on the eagle's muscles. And I was just like, if you opened it and it was like one of those novelty cards that played, it played the Star Spangled Banner, I would go, yeah, that's about right. But American passports, you can get more pages put in your passport, whereas a British passport you can't. You have had the 32 model or the 48 model, page model, and you edition, I guess, not model, you fill it up. You've got to get a new one, which is why I've got through so many of them. Right, let's go through some of the more messages. A source in Parliament said Lou rolls painkillers tins last time, but I'm realising I'm like halfway through these messages. I'm gonna have to skip some because I think people are talking to each other, so I hope you don't mind. And he says also the EU are pretty enlightened. Their constitution is based on progressive humanism, and because it's a union, its power is dispersed, which provides checks on authoritarianism. Yes, Ernie, you're absolutely right. However, I'm going to have a little go at the EU now, because this is something that some quite aggressive caller called into James O'Brien this morning. And I think he made a good point, actually. He said that the EU didn't publicise itself enough. And I agree. And I've already got some flack on Twitter for saying this morning. But I agree. I agree that the EU should have sent a leaflet out to everybody in the area of a gym that it built here in Durham, or something it built in Liverpool, or something it helped build in Wales with Objective One funding, or in Cornwall, saying, hey, check out the new gym, check out the new town hall, check out the new library, check out the new thing that we have built. We're the EU, this is what we've done for you. And people are saying, but it's not up to the EU to promote itself. We're members of the club. It should have been up to us. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I don't promote the local gym or the local sex cinema just because I'm a member. I'm not. But like, why would I do that? It's up to them to promote themselves. And someone else said, oh, it's up to the politicians, the MEPs, and the newspapers. And I'm like, oh my God. Have you been to Britain? So, politicians on both sides of the aisle in the House of Commons, Eurosceptics. Eurosceptics. Do you know who was calling for an EU in-out referendum 10 years ago? Nick Clegg. Nick Clegg of the Liberal Democrats. Obviously privately educated Nick Clegg. Just throw that in there. Not saying that everyone who's a leader of the Liberal Democrats has to be privately educated. They don't, as we saw with the... I've forgotten a name. Oh, okay, that's embarrassing. Who was the leader of the Lib Dems last year who absolutely massively cocked things up and then lost her seat? Swinson, Joe Swinson, that's it. God, that came to me. Yeah, Joe Swinson wasn't privately educated. But the new leader, Ed Davey, is. But yeah, so you had Eurosceptics in Labour, you had Eurosceptics in the Conservative Party. Okay, so we got the MEPs, they're going to big it up. So UKIP, since 1999, have had loads of MEPs. Are they going to big up what the EU does? Of course they're not. They hate the EU, they want to destroy it. And then the newspapers, I'm like, God, why would the newspapers, who exist to create these boogeymen, to create these nightmares, the power of nightmares, Adam Curtis's power of nightmares, they exist to create these nightmares, to make people afraid, to make people feel like they have to do something to stop these people from make people feel angry all the time and upset and feel like they haven't got their due and feel like people are taking advantage. They never got free things off the government. They never got free... Yes, you did. You got free education. Yeah, but apart from the free education, I never got free things. You got your healthcare. Oh, well, yeah, I was treated for cancer last year, and that probably did cost the taxpayer at least £100,000. But this government's done nothing... Oh, God's sake. All right, yeah, you've never taken a penny from the public purse. You've never driven on public roads. You've never flushed your shit down public sewers. You've never taken a swim in a public bath. Never done anything that has been built by any other human being ever. You've just built your own school. You paid your own teachers to teach you in that school. You built your own road going to the school. You built your own street lights to light the way to that school. You did it all yourself. Well done, you. Well done, you, for basically not costing society any money at all. Anyway, so yeah, the idea that the newspapers were supposed to big up the EU and they didn't. I mean, it's a bit like... It's a bit like putting like a dragon in charge of the fire department. Just like, all right, you're not to burn anything. Yeah, but that's what I do. Yeah, but you're not to burn it. So yeah, the EU, the very least, should have bigged itself up more. And I don't have a problem with saying the EU is not perfect. The EU has got problems that it needs to sort out, but the only way we can sort them out is by being part of it. And I think if anything they take from this whole Brexit debacle in the EU is when they do stuff, when they do this great stuff like the £2.1 billion that the EU invested in Liverpool to get Liverpool off its arse, because people my age remember what it was like in the 1980s, growing up in that city where all the jobs had gone, half the population had gone. You could drive down Kensington and every single building along shop, house, everything had a smash window on the upstairs. Every single one. And there was graffiti, and it took actually someone who had grown up in Liverpool in the 60s and came over, and this must be in the 90s, so it was in the mid-90s. And I remember I was in the car and we were driving down Kensington, and he said to me, I can't, because I thought it was normal. I didn't know that your city's not supposed to look like Beirut. And he was like, I can't believe how bad it is. This is really, really awful. And I was like, I remember saying to him at the time, it's actually got a lot better. Because it had for me, relative to what I saw when I was growing up. But the big difference was that Objective One funding coming in and Liverpool winning the European Capital of Culture. That was massive. And a big win for the European Union as well, to show that this was a great thing that Europe could pay for and help out. And as a result, perhaps Liverpool voted to remain. Not massively to remain, but it did vote to remain. My constituency voted 50.1% to remain in West Derby, in Liverpool. So I do feel like it should have promoted itself more. I'm going to say that, and I've said that for a while. I think it needs to big itself up and not rely on the likes of David Cameron, Jeremy Corbyn, Piers Morgan. These people are not going to help. If anything, they're going to make you look even worse. It's not a good look. Right, I'm really aware that I've only got 9 minutes left, and I've got so many messages. I'm just going to scroll through them. I'm really sorry. You can actually see me doing this in real time, which is quite cool. But yes, everyone's plumbed off. Okay, everyone's asking each other. That's good. Hemp and silk. Yes, let's get more silkworms. GB cannot supply the country with electricity on your own and has no facilities for your produced rubbish. Almost all of it sold to the EU and other countries. It's a really good point. Rubbish. We talked about this when we went to Gibraltar, and the one of the guys we spoke to, he used to be part of the Gibraltar government, and he's working as a lawyer now. And he told us about this rubbish problem in Gibraltar. He said, we don't got nowhere to put our rubbish. It goes to Spain at the moment. If the border's closed, then where do we put our rubbish? We used to have an incinerator when the border was closed in the 80s, but we got rid of it because space is at a premium in Gibraltar. It's a small rock, and you can't actually build on the rock itself because it's pretty much vertical almost. It was one of those moments where you're like, no one's thought this through. No one's thought about the nitty gritty. They've just thought about the big picture. You know, the fish, the blue passports. No one stopped to go, hang on, what are we going to do with the shit? Literally, what are we going to do with it? How are we going to treat our water if the chemicals are coming in from the EU? All of these things, it's so complex. And this is something that was explained to me when I went to the WTO in 2018. And they said to us, what you're doing, what your government is doing, is the most complex thing that a government has ever attempted. And they're doing it at the worst possible time. It's incredibly complex. And this idea that we're going to get this comprehensive free trade deal bashed out in, what have we got, 2 days? For 4 years. We've had 4 years to come up with the easiest deal in human history. And we haven't. Because it's not the easiest deal in human history. It's probably the hardest deal in human history. I think the Treaty of Versailles was a lot easier than this and was worked out a lot quicker. But in common with the Treaty of Versailles, what our deal with the EU is going to look a lot like is a situation in which we have lost a war. It's going to cost us more to buy things. It's going to cost us more to sell things. Brexit is going to make Britain cripplingly uncompetitive in the world. And as I keep saying, there's very little we make on this island that you can't make somewhere else for less money. Even in developed countries that pay a whopping great minimum wage, it'll still be cheaper to make it in those other countries because they don't have the tariffs to worry about. They've got access to a market of 450 million consumers. And just to put my capitalist hat on for a moment, I mean, God, if you're a disaster capitalist, if you're a disaster socialist, then yeah, great. But those people, they don't have our best interests at heart. They really, really don't. They're just out to either make money for themselves or grab power for themselves. This idea that will make it so bad that people will let me be the leader. That's what Jeremy Corbyn seemed to think. Make it really, really bad for people and I can be leader. And it's like, no, you don't want to be Prince of the Ashes. Why would you want that? I want everyone to have a good, happy, healthy life. I want the opportunities to be afforded our children that were afforded me when I was a child. I want them to be able to go and live and work in other countries without having to ask permission. I want them to be able to travel to other countries without those countries being able to arbitrarily put a travel ban on either people from this country or people who have a criminal record or people who have been to Sudan in the last 5 years. Whatever the reason is for them to stop you going into their country, I don't want it. I want freedom. I want to be able to go to these places and enjoy them without having to answer 20 questions, having arrived in Australia after a 24-hour flight. I don't want that. I want a situation where we can move around this world. And I tell you, people don't. And I'm not talking about tourists here. I'm talking about people who move somewhere for the benefits. I don't think I've ever met one. And traveling through West Africa, I met people who were on their way across the Sahara Desert and the Mediterranean to try and get to Europe. Why? They didn't. Not one of them said, "Oh, I'm doing it because I want to get the benefits. I'll get the benefits." They all know they won't get benefits. They all know how hard it's going to be. But they believe that if they go there and they work hard enough, because we've sold ourselves to the world as this wonderful place where if you work hard enough, anyone can achieve anything. And they feel like, yeah, well, I want that. I want to be able to work 3 jobs and get loads of money for it and send that money home to my family who aren't doing so well at the moment. But the more we educate women, the more we enrich other countries, the more we, well, just not even enrich them, just pay these places a decent amount of money for the things we buy off them instead of just, I don't know, trying to get everything for the cheapest possible price. Bring up the wealth of the world and people won't move so much. People won't have 17 children. People won't go to war because countries that trade with each other generally don't go to war with each other because they're not rivals. They're trade partners, which is what we used to be in the EU. Now we are going to be trading rivals. And we are 66.6 million people in the United Kingdom. The EU is 450 million people. We have a GDP of about $2.8 trillion dollars a year. 2.8 trillion. The EU is 18 trillion. 18. Who do you think is going to win in a trade war? The whale or the minnow? Who's going to win? And we seem to want to do this. We seem to want to antagonize the EU, our EU partners, our NATO allies. 21 of the 29 members of NATO are in the EU. So these are our military allies, our social allies, the people who we have spent the last few thousand years living next door to, our next door neighbors. And Jesus said, love thy neighbor. And you've got all these so-called Christians who go to church every week saying, yeah, the EU, they're making my bananas straight, they are. Ooh, I hate them. And like, what about loving your neighbour? Oh, well, he didn't mean them. He didn't mean them. He meant my neighbour, you know, George next door, he's all right. Anyway, right, I'm going to just I'm just going to skiply go through the messages. So Tiger Pie says, tariffs are not just about money, it's extra time and work. Yes. In the immortal words of Uncle Roger, smack that like button like an Asian parent smacks bags of rice. What? Okay. Damien's saying you should smack the like button before I go because that helps the algorithms, and they need all the help they can get. Jim Bob says, bugger, I missed it. Are you talking about the show? It's okay. You can watch it on catch up, or whatever they call it. You don't have to watch it live. We can make our own fecal matter. That's sugar-free. Yes. Britain could be the world's leading exporter of fecal matter. Darian says, doing Melania Trump impersonations. What? Bollocks says Specs 357. Okay. My retirement is turning into a poop fest. My phrase prediction for 2021: Brexit bailout. That's from Charlie Pierce. Yeah, I agree. That sounds about right. And British Navy hardly any ships anymore. Yeah, that's some fun stuff. I don't we have an aircraft carrier with no aircraft on it. Scary stuff. But yeah, the idea that our military would be better off patrolling fishing grounds to make sure people aren't taking our fish. But that's the best use of our military. It's a bit terrible. It's a bit terrible. Pete Robin says, hi Graham. Sorry I'm late. UK blue rinsers who voted for Brexit never wanted to live in the EU countries. Yeah, but they still want to go on holiday there. Jacob says, bye. Nigel's vile rants in the EU Parliament over 20 years set the stage for the Brexit rhetoric. Yeah, Nigel Farage, who is an absolute scumbag, and I really do want to see him spend the rest of his life in jail. And I hope he's not there for long. Let's put it that way. I remember Graham Hughes' blog, Three Blokes in a Pub. Three Blokes in a Pub. Excuse me, we never made that. Three Blokes in a Pub has all come true now. Yes, we were the Cassandras of our day. We told you it was going to happen, and now it's happening, and I'm only laughing because otherwise I'd just literally be in tears and no one wants to watch that. Okay, right, that's it for today. I'm going to have to sign off. Just leaves me to say, I'm going to Liverpool this weekend because I don't know, regular viewers will know that my dad's particularly ill at the moment. So I need to go and help out there. I should be back by Sunday night. And if I am back and ready for 10 o'clock, I will be doing a show 10 o'clock, Hughes at 10, like I did throughout second lockdown. So it'll be at 10 o'clock on Sunday, and it will be similar to this format, and we'll be rounding things up for the week. But also specifically, I want to do a show about what's happening with the Brexit deal, because this arbitrary deadline of Sunday, it's got to be sorted by Sunday. I think the actual deadline is going to be the end of the year, because Sunday, okay, I don't know what happens on Sunday, but apparently that's got to be the last possible date that we can get a deal. But yeah, so we'll be talking about that, but it'll be at 10 o'clock at night on Sunday if I'm back in time, because I'm relying on the trains here. And the three most dreaded words in the English language being rail replacement bus. I'll be travelling on a Sunday. Yeah, wish me luck. But until then, just quickly gonna just type a quick message in here, right? Because see, this is really fun. This is why whenever in a movie someone has to type something, they always have to like add loads of crazy camera angles and music to go da 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 da. So yeah, I've just put up a link there, which is patreon.com/thatgingerscout. So these episodes this week have been made possible by my wonderful Patreon community. I think I have 18 patrons now, which is very exciting. I'll give them a big shout out on Sunday on the Hughes at 10. If you'd like to join the community, what it is you pay just a few pounds. It's not like asking for mega bucks towards the production of these videos, which allows me to spend more on making sure that I can spend more time doing them, and I can also get the equipment that I need to set up to be able to do this every day of the weekdays. So yeah, if I don't see you on Sunday, I will definitely be back on Monday at 1 p.m. for HughesRound. Yes, and it should be good. Thanks, John, saying best wishes and thoughts with your family, Graham. Yeah, thanks, John. And Sugarfree says, good to see everyone. Thank you all, and Graham. Okay, so it's 3 minutes after 2 now, so I better sign off. So as I always try and say before I go,